Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, I'm going to be talking about Bob McKenzie's final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings and the 5 takeaways that we can get from it. Now Bob McKenzie's final draft rankings are officially released, so what can we learn from them and what are my 5 takeaways from his draft rankings? Watch till the end to find out. The 2019 NHL Draft is just a few days away, and Bob McKenzie has officially released his 2019 NHL Draft Rankings. Now, a big thing to note is that these are consensus ratings. He's talked with a lot of different scouts in the NHL, a lot of different people from around the NHL curve around these guys and where they think these guys will go. So it's not Bob McKenzie's draft rankings personally, it's more where he thinks these guys will actually go in the finished 2019 NHL Draft. Bob McKenzie usually gives us a good idea on where these guys will actually get picked, especially in the final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings that he puts out around this time every single year. He usually is pretty accurate with this stuff, and of course he's been talking with who knows who around the NHL, so it gives us a good idea on where these guys will actually get drafted on draft day. Now my first takeaway from his 2019 NHL Draft Rankings is about Spencer Knight. Now Spencer Knight was really interesting in this mock draft because he's the type of guy that TSN has ranked high a lot of different times throughout the year, and it was really interesting to see where he finished up at the end of all of this. And when it comes to his final rankings, Bob McKenzie did have Spencer Knight at number 12. And that's really important for a lot of different reasons. The main one being that, yes, officially, a lot of people in the NHL are very high on Spencer Knight, and Bob McKenzie pretty much confirms that. Being in the top 12, that's very high standards for a goaltender, especially as of recently guys like Jack Campbell, guys that have been busted in the first 15 picks as a goaltender. The NHL, for the most part, hasn't really done that in the last decade, but it's looking like Spencer Knight is more and more likely to get picked in the top 15. Now, for me personally, I usually don't like to draft goalies in the first round, and Spencer Knight isn't really an exception for me. I have him at number 35 in my final draft rankings. To me, a goaltender has to be exceedingly special to be able to be picked in the first round, and especially in the top 15. And I like Spencer Knight quite a bit, but I'm not convinced that he is that guy, at least not yet. I'm not sure if he's a guy like Andre Vasilevsky who goes 19th overall, or at least should go 19th overall. But Spencer Knight, again, the likelihood of him going top 15 in just a few days in the NHL draft is pretty likely right now. There's quite a bit of teams in that top 20 that could definitely use a goaltender in the future, and it may start to make a lot more sense as we get closer to the NHL draft. Teams like the Minnesota Wild, teams like the Florida Panthers, the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights, some teams in the top 20 that can't afford to pick a goaltender at that spot. Now, of course, I personally would not do that, especially with a guy like Spencer Knight, but there are some crazy teams out there and a lot of different people that want to take that risk. The main team that has been linked to Spencer Knight is the Florida Panthers, but there's also been a few rumors out there that Minnesota might be taking him with the 12th overall pick. Now, I think Minnesota needs forward help desperately and needs to take a forward at number 12, but Spencer Knight also, of course, could be the goaltender of the future there, which is valuable as well. For Minnesota, they have a tough decision there, but I would honestly say it's going to be either Minnesota or Florida that ends up picking him if he does go into that top 20. Now, the second takeaway that I have from Bob McKenzie's 2019 NHL Draft Rankings is on Arthur Kaliyev, and that a lot of NHL teams might not have a lot of different interest on him. Now, on the final draft rankings, Arthur Kaliyev was ranked 21 across the board. And if you know Arthur Kaliyev quite well, you know that he is pretty polarizing across the NHL draft community. You either love him, you either hate him. I'm somewhat kind of in the middle. I had him at number 11 in my final draft rankings, but I do like his upside quite a bit, and the offensive potential I think is definitely there. But obviously when it comes to his draft rankings and across the NHL, they don't quite feel the same. And Kaliyev is a super polarizing prospect, so it's not exactly a surprise that he is outside of the top 20 in the draft rankings, but it's a little bit surreal. When it comes to Kaliyev, he had an explosive OHL season, a historic one. He put up 102 points with the Hamilton Bulldogs, but there are some major concerns on him over his work ethic, his overall game, some valid concerns as well, as I think those ones are. But having him at number 21, I think is a little bit of a disservice to him, and I think it is kind of realistic. In my mock draft, not my personal rankings, and I'm going to 22 with LA Kings. I just don't think a lot of NHL teams are willing to take the risk on him to develop him well and develop him into a strong NHL player because he has shown to have that talent, but again, those concerns are definitely there. Now, we've seen prospects in the past go down the draft because of a work ethic problem or an attitude problem. That's not exactly rare. In last year's draft, we saw Ryan Merkley and Joe Veleno, two great prospects that probably shouldn't have fallen to the places they were at. Joe Veleno especially, I think he was at number 3, which was just a crime on his end. But when it comes to Arthur Kaliev, he has some of the same complaints. I'm not one to really talk since I haven't scouted him that much, but some people say that his work ethic in the games themselves, sometimes he has a laziness problem. Off the ice, his work ethic might not be there as much as some other prospects. And again, that's something that I think people can fix. I think an NHL team, if they do it right, if they take that risk, can definitely fix that type of attitude. I think they can put a mindset on him that can change his whole play, make him to a solid NHL player. But he has talent there, but I think there are concerns over that he might not be fixable, that maybe an NHL team just can't have the burden of trying to fix this player's mindset. That might be too late at that point. Going on to my third takeaway from Bob McKenzie's final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings, I'm going to group 3 different players into this mold here. Now, in the last few picks, the first round, or at least the top 31 of his rankings, there were a few surprises, most notably Tobias Bjornfot, Alex Vlasic, and Lassie Thompson. 3 defensemen that should all 3 probably be ranked outside the top 31, or at least were a few months back, or just at least a month back, but are all into the top 31 this time around. Now to get into the specifics, at number 27 was Tobias Bjornfot, Alex Vlasic was at number 29, and you had Lassie Thompson at number 3. Now, that's a big difference from where I put those 3 guys. When it came to my personal rankings, I had Tobias Bjornfot at number 39, Alex Vlasic at number 57, and Lassie Thompson at number 42. When it comes to having Tobias Bjornfot and Lassie Thompson in the top 31, I don't think that's exactly crazy. 2 of those guys you can make a case for definitely to be in that top 31. When it comes to, especially when it comes to Tobias Bjornfot, he has a lot of solid talent, and the two-way ability for him is definitely there. With Lassie Thompson, he had a little bit of an underwhelming year in the WHL, but has some good underlying numbers, and again, is a little bit of a diamond in the rough when it comes to his overall skill. Again, I can kind of see how you put those 2 guys in the top 31, but Alex Vlasic is a little bit of a hit from left field, in my opinion. Now, I had Alex Vlasic at number 57, so I don't really have too much opinion on him, at least when it comes to good regards, but obviously when it comes to the NHL scouts that Bob McKenzie's looked at, and anyone that he's talked to, they're pretty high in Alex Vlasic, which is a pretty solid thing for him going into the 2019 NHL Draft. Now, for my fourth takeaway from Bob McKenzie's final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings, I'm going to be talking about Patrick Puempel and him getting pretty underrated in his final rankings. Now, when it comes to Puempel, he's a pretty interesting prospect. He had an amazing second half, so he was rising quite a bit. He was one of the guys that I was kind of predicting to maybe go in the first round and maybe even go in the top 20. He's the type of guy that, again, I thought was rising quite a bit. But with this mock draft, with these draft rankings that were just recently released by Bob McKenzie, it's looking like that might not be the case after all. Now, I have Patrick Puempel at number 38 in my draft rankings. I think he's a very talented player that showed some great promise in the World Juniors. I personally wouldn't take him with the first round pick. I would take him with the early second round pick, but I still think he's a very talented player that deserves to go in the second round. But with Bob McKenzie's rankings, he has Puempel at number 71, which is a big drop off from what I thought the hype that he actually had. And being at number 71, Bob McKenzie is basically saying that Patrick Puempel will be available in the third round, which I think is absolutely fantastic for a team that has an early pick in the third round. If you get Patrick Puempel in the third round, especially if you're a team that gets that, if you're a fan of the team that gets that guy, be really hyped, because he would be a great bargain bin option at the third round. He has amazing talent, and I think he's shown second round talent at least, but due to the scouts, due to the people that he's talked with around the NHL, looking like Bob McKenzie putting him at number 71 might be a realistic choice for him. And that's kind of sad, because I think he does deserve to go in the second round at least. He has that talent, but going into the third round again, if you get him in the third round, that is an absolute steal. Now, for my fifth takeaway from Bob McKenzie's final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings, maybe the weirdest one out of all of these is Pavel Trofeo. Now, some of you guys know, if you've been watching the channel for the last couple of months, I've become a pretty big fan of Pavel Trofeo and what he's bringed. But in the final 2019 NHL Draft Rankings by Bob McKenzie, I'm not gonna lie, his placement is very weird. Now, first things first, in my draft rankings, I have Pavel Trofeo in the first round. I have him ranked as the 18th best prospect in the 2019 NHL Draft. The talent he has is absolutely amazing. The potential especially, I think, is through the roof. One of the better potentials across the board in the 2019 NHL Draft. But when it comes to Bob McKenzie, through all the people he's talked about, to all the people that he's talked with about Pavel Trofeo, it's really weird to see where he ends up in this NHL Draft ranking. Now, he has Pavel Trofeo at number 82. And this just it's kind of just weird to me again, how Pavel Trofeo, the talent that he has, is all the way down to 82. I think he is going to number 93 in his full draft rankings, but he was 11 away from not even being included, which I think is just preposterous in my opinion. To have a guy that talented, that good at number 82 across everybody he's talked with, again, to me just feels super weird, especially with where he was at just a month ago. If you remember, or if you saw Bob McKenzie's last month rankings, you would know that Pavel Trofeo was at number 32 in his draft rankings. He dropped 50 spots since last month, which I don't even know how that happens, to be honest. I don't know how there's a process where you continue to talk with scouts, continue to talk with NHL people, and drop a prospect 50 spots, especially from number 32 down to 82. To me, it makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know why Pavel Trofeo is not 82, and I can't really blame Bob McKenzie because he's just going off what he's heard. He's going off what scouts are telling him, people around the NHL are telling him. I'm not going to blame Bob McKenzie for putting him at number 82. I'm just going to blame anybody that's told him that he's the 82 best prospect in the NHL Draft. And yes, I will admit that Pavel Trofeo does have blemishes in his game. He's not a perfect prospect by any means, but I think he is definitely worth the risk of taking in the first round, in the second round especially. He doesn't even have him in his second round, let alone the early third round, which I just think is absolutely insane. But when it comes to Pavel Trofeo, again, I think there are some red flags there, and if he's actually fine, I still think he is. He still is a great prospect. I think should be in the first round at least in this 2019 NHL Draft. When it comes to Bob McKenzie's final draft rankings, it usually gives us a very good look at where these prospects will actually go in the 2019 NHL Draft. He's been very accurate in the past with all of these mock drafts and all these prospect rankings that he's done, so I'm willing to take his bet that he is very realistic on what it actually looks like. So again, it's looking like these are realistic picks. Some I agree with, and of course, some I don't. But of course, with this video, I need to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So let me know what you think about my 5 takeaways from Bob McKenzie's 2019 NHL Draft Rankings. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And what is your biggest takeaway from his draft rankings? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this card right here to watch my video about Craig Bunn's final 2019 Draft Rankings and why they are really, really bad. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your takeaways from Bob McKenzie's final draft rankings, and I'll see you guys next video or stream. Goodbye.